Welcome everyone to another episode of Kiwi Talks. I'm honoured to be speaking to a man behind the music of Tom Clancy, the PUBG main theme, Halo, Killer Instinct, and more. Atlas Plug, aka Tom Salta. How you doing?
How are you, Reese?
I am good. It's an honour to be speaking to you. You've been in the industry for a long time, so a veteran.
Yes, I have.
A veteran at this point.
Getting up there.
Yeah. So tell me how you got the name Atlas Plug, because it sounds like a hacker name, a cyber hacker name.
That's funny. You should say that. It came about as a little-known secret. Well, actually, I don't know if it's little known anymore, but if you take my last name, Salta, and you put it backwards, it's Atlas. So the whole thing, Atlas, right. There's a fun story behind it. Actually, I gave a TEDx talk a couple of years back on that. If you Google my name with TEDx, you'll see it. But the shorter version of that is that when I came out of a 15-year music industry career as a producer and a songwriter and programmer, I started touring back in 1990 with Bobby Brown, and you know, I was always into the music scene. And I was always a gamer, but never combining the two together. In 2001, when I got the bug to get into the gaming industry, I realized that all of my record credits really wasn't going to help me impress any game devs. They didn't really care what records I worked on or anything like that. So instead of me being like another of the many wannabe composers starting with no credits, I got the sense that really the best way in is to avoid the front door and come in the side door, which was come in as an artist. Because I was noticing that a lot of big artists were being licensed in video games, you know, especially driving games and things like that. You know, artists like Crystal Method and Moby and Chemical Brothers and stuff like that. So I'm like, wait, I can be an artist. I know how to make albums. I can do electronic music. I can do all this kind of stuff. How about I just come up with this fictitious artist moniker and then approach the industry that way? Make an entire album of music that's perfect for licensing in video games and TV and film and trailers and all that stuff. And then maybe if I can impress the video game industry that way, you know, I kind of come in through that door. And then once I kind of started establishing some credits, take off the mask, so to speak, and say, hey, you know, I would love to also score as a composer some of your games. So that was the crazy, desperate plan. And it worked. It's like one of the few actual plans that I had in my life that actually worked the way I was hoping it would work out. So plug is a play on unplugged, which is traditionally known as acoustic music. And since I was doing electronic, it was plug or plugged. But instead of sounding like Atlas Shrugged, I did Atlas Plug. And that's it.
Good story. Well, I'm glad it worked. I'm glad it worked out for you.
It worked. Before I even finished the album, Microsoft wanted to license 4 songs off the record in a video game called Rally Sport Challenge 2. So this is going back to 2003. And after that, it was Crackdown, and then, you know, Project Gotham, and a bunch of other stuff. And then I started getting some scoring opportunities.
Was it always the plan to get into the video game industry, though? Or were you originally wanting to do, say, film or television, or just stick to the traditional working with musical artists?
Yeah, no, the original plan, if you asked me when I was 20 years old, the original plan was to be a, you know, big famous record producer. That was the plan. But in 2001, you might recall the world changed quite a bit, almost overnight. Besides 9/11, high-speed internet came out, and Napster came out, and LimeWire came out, and all of these high-speed music piracy services came out. Even myself, it was so easy. You can just open up LimeWire, and you can type a name of a song and download it for free. High quality. It was like, so it took a genius like Steve Jobs to figure out how to monetize this into something that was actually legal and beneficial for everybody. And that's when he created iTunes. Now, at that same time, I noticed that, the record industry was losing and going to lose a lot of revenue. It was gonna woo. And if you look back at the analytics, I guess you'd say, at the charts, look at the music industry revenue, you'll see right around 2001, it tanked. It started to just go down. And along with it was all my dreams and aspirations to be this big famous record producer. Trying to raise a family when the industry, where no one's buying music anymore and music was being devalued. People didn't buy an album. They just want to buy that single. If they were even going to buy it, it's going to be 99 cents instead of like a $10 record. The idea of getting record deals and all that, like, it started to change a lot. So that's where I kind of like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And right along the same time is when games in 2001, again, Halo came out. I started playing Rainbow Six and Prince of Persia, and that's when, like, the epiphany and the clouds parted happened, is when I got the bug. I'm like, wait a minute, I've always loved video games, but this music, I can do this. I love this stuff. And so that's when I got the crazy idea, and that's when the transition happened.
So how long was the transition between, say, when you had the revelation that the music industry was going down the toilet pretty much because of LimeWire, and then realizing that you could compose for video games?
Yeah. It all happened within the entire life cycle, from when I panicked to when I actually got my first placement, was probably 3 years. Okay.
So you weren't on any anxiety pills or anything during that time, I hope.
Not at that time.
Okay, that's good.
Following that, of course, but no, not at that time. Yeah.
Funny. So were you aware of how the structure of video game works in terms of the time frame that you have? Because obviously, say with television and film, it's very, very fast paced. And video games, it's more spread out, right? So you have more ease in terms of how much time you have to deliver that product.
Yeah, usually, yes, absolutely. So I was not really, everything was a learning experience for me in those days, because I had never done music to picture of any kind whatsoever. So that was a huge learning curve to kind of just get into that headspace, like, whoa, and it was a bit of a sink or swim kind of moment, especially when I got like the first big game that I had to create original music for was Need for Speed Underground 2. So not a minor title, and man, that was definitely an eye-opening experience, to say the least. If I could do that again now, it'd be a walk in the park. But in those days, it was like, whoa, yeah, I wasn't used to that whole thing and all the revisions, and then really trying to adapt to things. There was a lot of new skills to learn, not to mention I was mixing in 5.1, and it was like, whoa, what? Was this a good idea? But yes, it was a good idea. I'm so glad that it all turned out the way it did.
Was there a lot of back and forth with the director? You'd submit something and be like, no, I don't like this. Go back and redo it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That infamously so on that particular gig. Okay. I started keeping I think I was having a nervous breakdown. I started keeping a chart, an Excel thing of like how many revisions. I think it was like an average of 5 revisions per thing. I'm like, this is insane. This is insane, and little details. It's like, really? But I'm glad I had that experience. It was definitely, I felt like I went through boot camp.
Yeah.
And I joke with him now. I still know him professionally, and we're friendly, and he's awesome. I mean, he's great. He's known for what he does. He's still in the industry, not as an audio director, but it was great. It was a good. If I was going to really learn and develop a hard shell and figure it all out, that was a very good boot camp to go through.
You've taken on franchises like, say, Halo and Killer Instinct, where you're kind of taking it, you're basically approaching it after someone's already kind of applied a signature sound to it, right? So Martin with Halo, and even Mick Gordon with Killer Instinct.
Very much so.
Is there a pressure from your end to try and keep it close to the original feel? that the original composers did, or do you just kind of do your own thing? Or is it a combination of both?
It is a combination of both. I'm usually the one that will pressure myself when it comes to that. You know, in the case of Halo, first of all, I worked on about 6 different Halo titles, so they all had different parameters. You know, the obviously the anniversary titles where I was part of a team that recreated the original score. The goal was to recreate the original score, but enhance it. Like, this is the way it should have sounded, you know, a decade later, kind of thing, using updated sounds and technology and live orchestras and better, more modern, I don't know, synths and all that kind of stuff. But then when I went to do the original Halo stuff, let's say like Spartan Assault and Spartan Strike, and, you know, that's where there was this, almost there was a divide in thinking, because those are the same days where, you know, Halo 4 was coming out, and you know, and it's like, well, you know, do they go, are we going after the, what I call the legacy sound of Halo, you know, what I loved in 2001, or are we going into a new direction? I joined the camp of wanting to preserve like the original DNA, what Marty and Michael Salvatore did. That was just, for me, you don't want to play around. That's a formula that was ingenious. It worked great. And there's no need to change that. In my opinion, that's like, you know, taking John Williams off of some of the films. You know, you don't do that. It's just, it's blasphemous. So I really love that sound, and I put a lot of effort. You know, I think I was the champion of wanting to keep that sound. You know, there was no pushback, but I was so adamantly interested in finding a way to preserve the essence of what makes Halo music Halo music. So I really studied, and because I recreated 2 of the scores, you know, it was part of my DNA already. It's like I know, you know, the sounds and the voicings and the style. So to recreate it, that was kind of like a dream come true. It was very scary because I'm like, now I have to create original music for a top-down shooter, which is not Halo, which is not what Halo was. So a top-down, always action-y kind of shooter, but still sound like Halo. But if you listen to those soundtracks, it really does. You close your eyes and you feel like, yeah, this is definitely a Halo game. You know. But with Killer Instinct, I think across the board, it was all about, you know, certainly Mick Gordon is Mick Gordon, you know, and I'm me, and I brought in Clayton Cell Dweller, and, you know, we all have very strong sounds, but I hugely respected what Mick did, and I know the fans love it. There was no problem. Mick nailed it. So, you know, I was honored to actually, Mick suggested that I work on it. And I was like, Mick, I mean, what? You're crazy. Dude, what are you doing? You know? So I was scared. I was really scared. I said, you know, because Mick's got a certain sound, you know? And I just want to make sure that whatever I bring to the table is going to satisfy people. It's going to be somewhat different, but I didn't go to make it different like, no. That was a poor decision. We should make it sound like this. No. It wasn't like that. But I wanted to find my way of approaching that character, so to speak, comparing it to actors. You know, my take on it. Just because I am me. You know, I have unique brain and set of skills and musical styles, but I know the way I perceived that original music. I wanted to kind of bring that and translate it into my own version of it.
So did Mick approach you to take over for him? Or did
he gave me a heads up, yes. He basically called me up, and I had already known him. And, you know, so he said, I've recommended you. So he's the one who made the connection, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. I would never approach that. You know, but, hey, guys, no. Forget Mick. Call me up, man. Let's do this. No, it wasn't like that. No, Mick, I had Mick's blessing, I believe, so.
Because he has a very unique way of mixing as well. You can usually tell by the way he mixes. And obviously, you've been mixing for a long time.
Yes.
So was there any pressure to try and mix it the way he would? Or did you just apply all of your industry knowledge to just mix it the way you would mix it?
Mixes have all kinds of different styles, right? There's different approaches to it. So part of the sound of what makes mix music sound that way is a big part of the production and the mix. So that was part of the musical formula to consider. How to, that super in your face sound. It's like ultra, it's hard to describe, but you listen to it, it's like what it is. So I had enough experience over the decades to be able to analyze something and understand how that's done in some way and put that back into it. So yeah, so if you listen to my stuff and his stuff, it definitely sounds like they belong in the same ecosystem, so to speak. And that was not accidental.
Because what's your approach to mixing? I mean, obviously, there's no set template that you can apply across the board.
Right.
That's because every track is uniquely different frequencies, different instruments.
Different everything, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So, but do you still have like something that you start off with before you even tackle the mix?
Well, yes. I mean, a huge part of what makes a mix a good mix, believe it or not, isn't even the mix, it's the content. The best way to make a good mix is to use good sounds to start with. I've seen that some of my best mixes are the simplest ones. I just had the right sounds in there. And that's been always my goal and my approach. Back when I was starting out making records in the mid-90s, I was so like, I had this assumption that there was such a, this difficult, multi-stepped, elusive process with a million layers and gadgets and EQs and mixers and compressors and magic sauce, and I was always analyzing and trying to revert, and I over-mixed things. I would used to just put things on it because you're supposed to. You can't have a bass without a compressor on it. Oh, you can't have a kick without a compressor or an EQ or this thing And now I think the way I approach anything, but also mixing, is what's the least I can do? Let's just listen to what's there first. And then what's that master stroke that, there it is, right there, just break it down to its simplest things and just find those few masterful decisions that are going to make it work. So if you look at my mixes today versus 20 years ago, on the average, on the whole, you'd probably notice there's a lot less going on when you compare apples and apples.
Mm-hmm. So could you record something and then during the mixing phase you realize that there's too much going on, so you'll remove stuff out of it? Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. Even Mick himself, I remember him saying at one of the talks that I heard him give, and since we're speaking of mix, and he had a similar thought process to me is, how much can I take out before it doesn't work anymore? You know what I mean? And that's something I've learned just listening to great music from the 80s. When you listen to stuff where there was great limitations on the music, keep it in mind in those days, professionally, they were using a 24-track tape recorder. Some producers got a little crazy and started linking them together, like Mutt Lange with Def Leppard, having 100 layers of the vocals, using tape. That's why it sounds that way. But for the most part, I mean, if you listen to a Michael Jackson record, with Bruce Sweden, was one of the greatest engineers that ever lived, in my opinion, you can hear every little sound, and there's not that much. You can listen. Oh, there's the bass. There's just that simple drum. There's the one guitar. There's this extra little part here. Everything has its space, and it's very clean, and it's like there's nothing there that doesn't belong. There's nothing there that's superfluous. Everything has its purpose. And I I always learn from that. That for me, that's school. You know, that's why I'm such an active listener, because I'm always trying to figure it out. Like I'm learning something.
So how often do you mix for before you go away? Because you know how your ears get tired over time.
Yes.
So do you mix for, say, like 20-minute session, then go away for 10 minutes, come back? Is that what you do, or what's your process?
The time depends on the music itself. I find that, let's say, if I had to make a gross generalization, I'd say the heavier, the more dense, the more fatiguing the music is, the quicker I fatigue. You know, the quicker my ears fatigue. So if I'm doing something that's really heavy and hard and like like Killer Instinct, you know, I'm not going to go as long as I can go with something that has a little bit more air to it and that's not as demanding and pressing and, you know, on my ears. So I don't really think of it that way as far as, well, I can only go to 20 minutes or an hour. But I will say this is that the more experience I have, the less breaks I need. Or let's put it this way, certainly the less time I need to step away. You know, sometimes now, you know, I can step away for a few minutes and come back and have a lot more clarity that used to take me hours or a night in the past. But I still benefit from, you know, early, you know, the next morning perspective. That's always great. You know, sometimes when something's really important and I gotta have that mix just right, and I finish at the end of the day and I think this is perfect, I'm gonna not send it until I listen again in the next morning.
Smart move.
Yeah. But it's not as bad, it's not as necessary as it used to be.
Right, but you don't come in the next morning and be like, oh my gosh, this is horrible.
Yeah, right. That's a nightmare. Yeah. That rarely happens, thank God. You know, maybe if I'm having a tough time with something, perhaps, but usually if I have one of those like, there it is, that's why. You know, I usually figure it out, but yeah, I don't think I get that like, oh God, this is all crap, I'm just starting over, you know. And I thought it was great the night before. Yeah, I've been there.
Well, how do you maintain that quality though in film and television? Because the deadlines are so much more. Well, they're more strict, right? So you might have to do a lot more overnighters, days in a row, as opposed to gaming where you've kind of got a bit more time.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, in any situation where the timelines are shorter, the thing that I know that film and television composers benefit from quite a bit is a bit of a cookie cutter process, a bit of the template model, a bit of the rinse and repeat process. They're not always or necessarily ever reinventing. It's really about once you get that formula, the rest of it is the same. And not to say it's not difficult, but I find that when I'm doing my game stuff, there tends to be a lot more variety and rebuilding sound palettes and things, and a lot more moving parts and details on the second to second. There's a lot less filler, you know, when I'm doing game stuff. But also keep in mind, I'm not really known as a TV and film composer at this current moment. I'm not actively. I mean, when the right opportunity comes by, that's fine, and I've done films and stuff. But my heart is really in games, quite frankly, and production, songwriting, production. And I even have quite a number of things in film trailers in the trailer world as well. So yeah, I'm not into. You know, a lot of my colleagues, contemporaries, are very much in the movie scene and stuff, and quite a number of them are not very happy campers. I mean, there's no life. They're just working around the clock, and they're miserable. And you know, I'm not saying it's always like that. I mean, but that's not that's not attractive to me. In any way.
You actually echo what a lot of other game composers have said to me that have been in that world. That it's just insanely stressful.
Yeah. I don't need more stress. I have enough. So, games is something that really speaks to me. I've been doing it now for over 15 years. I've always loved games. I still play games. I collect arcade games. I have a little mini arcade in my basement, and video games just takes me back to my youth. I mean, in case you can't see this, come on now. I'm a big kid, and games is a big part of who I am. So being able to do music for them, it helps keep me young and enthused and excited.
So how do you find the time to even play games, though? Because you must be insanely busy.
Yeah.
I mean, plus you do your masterclass stuff, and you've done TED Talks and things like that. I mean, you're obviously a very business-savvy guy.
Yeah. For me, having time to play video games is a luxury. The way I do it most routinely now, I got this idea from my brother-in-law, it was ingenious, is I use it while I'm exercising. So I got myself a recumbent bike, and I have it in my basement, and I have this big screen, and I get the recumbent bike, and I hold my controller, my Xbox controller, and I'll play games while I'm exercising, while I'm sweating for 30 minutes to an hour. And so that's the way I can justify doing it during the week, or fitting into my life.
That's true multitasking right there.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
The tricky thing is, though, I've noticed that some games are better to play to than others, because some, like let's say if you're like racing games or whatever, or if you're, anything that takes like a lot of go, you can go really fast and recumbent. But anytime you're sneaking around, like I'm playing Assassin's Creed, and I'm sneaking around, I realize I just stopped pedaling because I'm like going real slow. I'm like, no, you can't do that. But anyway, but I figured it out.
Fair enough. Do you ever get a writer's block? Do you ever just hit a point where you're just like, oh my gosh, I have nothing coming to me?
Sure. I mean, I'd be lying if I said, oh yeah, I'm a constant. I'm like, I need a fresh idea, ready. But I will tell you this, is that I don't really experience anymore, thank God, what you're describing as writer's block. And what I mean is this. When I am ready to sit down and create, and I'm in the right headspace, the ideas are always there. I'm able to tap into that flow. Doesn't mean that the first thing I play is going to be ingenious. Doesn't mean that. But it does mean I can start creating right away. And there's a certain creative process that I've learned to consent to, I guess you'd say, to tap into over the years. In fact, it's one of those talks that I've given publicly, and I even put into one of my Masterclass courses that I've recently released. Is called The Creative Process. And I find that when you are in the right headspace, which, put in a very simple way, is closer to a little kid in a sandbox rather than an adult going to work. When I can be more of the kid in the sandbox, creativity is nonstop. But when I have to be the adult on a deadline, the professional, and I kind of psych myself out with the pressure, and this has got to be ingenious, and people are going to judge me. And when I start analyzing that, it stops, right? When you take a little kid, and you give him a box of crayons in kindergarten, you generally don't hear the kids say, yeah, I'm not very creative. I'm not a creative person. Come on. That kid's it doesn't matter. They're gonna draw. It's gonna be scribbles or beautiful face or anything, whatever. But they're creating something. We all have creativity. Doesn't mean we all have the same kind of creativity, but it's there. So writer's block, in my opinion, is when something is getting in the way. Something is getting in the way. And typically, it's the left side of my brain getting in the way. Or my ego is getting in the way. Or the way I feel, health-wise, is getting in the way. Like, I'm tired. I didn't get enough sleep. Or I'm fighting a cold. Or I'm thinking about, I'm stressed, or I'm mad, or, you know, those are the things that cause writer's block.
Are you self-aware, though? Can you realize when you're in that state? Or does
I think
someone
so.
else?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. One of the things that's really helped me over the years, I've gotten into meditation. And I generally do it every day. And it's wonderful. It's an incredible, it was a life-changing thing for me that really helped me calibrate and clear and purge and become closer to the essence of who I am on the inside and kind of identify when there's other stuff that's flying around and whatever. And it kind of just calms down the whole... there's a name for it, the nervous system that has to do with anxiety and all that. I forgot what it's called. Any of the psychologists out there might know it. But anyway, I just found it's this wonderful, good thing, just overall, in every way. And so I am very, very self-aware. And I think it's important to be self-aware. You know, okay, what is this? What's getting at me now? You know, am I stressing about something? Am I preoccupied? Am I worried? Am I scared? Am I, you know, whatever it is? And quite simply, just usually the best cure is to get up and walk away.
Do you ever meditate to your own music, like an ambient piece of your own music?
No, definitely not. One, I stopped meditating to music altogether. Because I tended to find it distracting. Even if it's the most calming, beautiful music, I tend to just focus on the music. You know, that could be more me than most people because I'm like, wow, that's beautiful. I wonder if that's a Korg Trinity. Oh, what's that pad? Oh, wow, that voice. Is that a real voice? Like, I'm, you know, that doesn't work. I can't, that's not meditation. It's relaxation, but I'm not meditating. I'm not clearing my mind. I'm not going into just complete blank. No, I meditate to silence. In fact, I use noise-canceling headphones to just literally take a quiet room and make it like nothing. Really? So, but yeah, no, I'm an active listener, and my own music would be so incredibly distracting. Even more so. Because I'd be like, damn it, I could have done this better. You know.
So how long do you meditate for?
20 minute blocks. My goal is 2 20-minute blocks a day. I've been averaging 1 a day for the most part. Sometimes though, if it's one of those days and I'm like, things are just flying in every direction and I'm getting pinged and I just like, there's so many things, because there are a lot of things that I juggle. Besides the fact that I am married with kids and you know, just life in general and trying to have a life, you know, but between, goodness gracious, the numerous projects and the Masterclass and the trailers, and I'm working on a software product, and you know, like it's endless. There's this crazy list that I have, like all the things. I'm like, okay, I'm only going to do this today. I'm only going to do this today, or, you know, and I have to schedule my life, you know, and I have to schedule time to make sure I'm not working too. You know, to kind of have that balance, that life balance, you know?
Yeah, totally. How did the whole Masterclass thing come about? Were you approached to do that?
No. This is my own Masterclass. This is not the commercially known one that you see advertised where they have all different people teaching you different things. This is my own. And it came about before the pandemic, believe it or not. It just happened to be fortuitous timing in that sense. But it came about because for over a decade, I would always enjoy speaking in universities and conferences, giving panels and presentations. I still do. You know, I speak at NYU every year. I give a video game workshop, and I've been doing all these things. I've put together so much curriculum, and I can just pop down and, talk on anything, in this whole world. And I'm like, you know what? Why not? This is limiting. I mean, it's great to do this, and I enjoy the interaction, but I find why am I waiting around for a school to call me or a conference to happen once a year? Why don't I just put something together that will give the opportunity to people around the world who don't have the resources to travel or the funds to go to a very expensive university or a conference? Why not make it an affordable thing that's available via the internet that you can own and watch over and over and over again, but also have a two-way dynamic to it as well? The great thing about a conference is you go there, and then maybe if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand, or speak to the person maybe afterwards in the hallway or whatever, and get into conversation. So in addition to the Masterclass, which I wanted to put together, I also wanted to have a way to interact with students on a one-to-one as much as I could. So that's why I also integrated, like, everyone who takes, let's say, Game Music Essentials, which is the first course, they can schedule a private call with me, and I can speak with them one-to-one and evaluate whatever music they submitted. And there's also, I have a monthly live event where anyone who's taken the course can join me live on the web, and I can see them, they can see me, and they can ask questions. So it's kind of like having my own conference, but without the conference, and you're getting all that content and that two-way interaction. And that was why I put it together. And then the pandemic hit. I'm like, whoa, I better definitely make sure this is out there and publicized as much as I can. So we kind of recently rolled it out, and I think people are starting to discover it.
Because how long did it take you to construct it, right? Because you have to construct sessions.
Yeah. It took me a while, and because this was my first course, it was kind of put together over a period of time. I wasn't even sure what the final product was going to look like when I started recording some of these videos, and then I realized that, oh wow, this would be great to include in the Game Music Essentials. So, let's say the creative process one, I think that was one of the first ones that I gave, recorded myself. I was wearing a sweatshirt, whatever. It wasn't a very formal thing, and by the time I knew this was what it was going to be, the last talk I gave was the business of game audio, which I think is overlooked quite a bit in formal education when it comes to composing. It's it's great. I know the skills and the creative, but what about the business? What about the business side? How do I get a gig? What do the contracts look like? What should I expect? What's my rate? Whatever. So I put all that stuff, and I was wearing a nice, button-down shirt. So, so going forward, now I understand what this is, but the content is all there, and it's very consolidated. In fact, it might be too dense. I think the comment I've gotten is oh my God, this could easily be twice the time. But you go through it so fast. There's so much there. But it's good because you can just watch it over and over again. It's not like the one-time event where you have to oh my God, I can take notes. Oh my God, what do you say?
Yeah,
it's all
totally.
there. So.
And music is very broad as well, right? So, I mean,
yes.
To try and condense stuff, because how long are the sessions?
Yeah, well, I think the whole thing is about 3 hours if you distill it all down, and that's several talks. It's creative process talk, that's understanding implementation, that's the basics of game audio, that's the business side. That's not a lot of time when you think about the content that I cover. But it is arranged quite densely, and it's chock full of information. So, and examples and multimedia, and, so.
And I suppose you're still learning stuff as you go as well,
Always.
right?
Yeah. Always. Oh, I'm a big student. I'm a life student. Absolutely, for sure. I'm always learning.
So are you going to do a second course, I suppose?
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to do a series of courses. So I called it the Tom Salta Masterclass series. So that's the umbrella. And then inside of that, there's going to be various courses and content. The first one, and the only one right now that I launched with, was Game Music Essentials, which is perfect for anyone who's interested in what it takes and curious about game music. Can I do this? How do you do it? I don't really know. I don't know what to, and it's not that much of a a commitment or an investment that you're just like, oh, I don't know. It's not like going to school or taking a major or something. Not only that, but it's perfect for students, because then I teamed up with a lot of amazing companies out there like Heaviosity and Cinesamples and Arturia, and they're giving students of my courses huge discounts. Some are doing 50% discounts. So if you sign up for the course, you're saving tons of money on all this other gear too. So it's anyone could be a student.
That's right.
No, well, you're a student how young or old doesn't matter.
Until the day you die, really. You never stop learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did the PUBG theme come about? And were you aware that PUBG was going to take off like it did? Did you foresee it? Did you play it and were like, oh my gosh, this is the next big thing?
Yeah, I knew it was huge. I got contacted by PUBG, basically, and they were looking for a composer to create the official theme. This was a really interesting situation, because when I was contacted, PUBG was the most downloaded game on PC already. Before I even got involved, it was always like in beta for a year, 2 years? It was out there. So the beta version has a completely different theme. So I'm like, wait. Okay, so let me get this straight. You have this hugely popular game in beta that's like the most downloaded thing in history, or something like that. Maybe the second most downloaded in history. But it's like, I'm not even going to say the numbers, but it was stupid. And you want a new theme. I'm like, yes, we want to have, a proper theme and, really something that's going to stand the test of time and be recognizable as PUBG. And I'm like, okay, so that was really cool. And I was honored. And I was nervous too. I'm like, okay, because once again, you have this interesting situation where got all these fans that are really into this. I mean, this is a whole culture, this game. This was before Fortnite. This was like the battle royale. This redefined the genre, right? Or whatever. And so I had to create something distinctly different, because otherwise, why am I doing it? But it also had to be something that felt right. It felt like, okay, now it's real. So the game you've all known and loved, if you're a beta player, here's your new theme. I'm like, okay. But anyway, and they did have some, they didn't just leave me high and dry. I mean, they definitely said, look, we love the heroic melody that you created for Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter. We love like the electronic EDM elements in Halo, Spartan Assault. We so they love the percussion of, this and that. And they kind of laid out references with things that I actually did, which is probably why they wanted to have me do it. And so following their guidance and their preferences, that's how I started with the theme. And it was very interesting the way it came about. And but the thing most people don't realize about this is that the full theme isn't even heard in the game. Okay? The game plays the theme in the menu, right? It's like kind of menu music. It's not that crazy. But there's a whole second half to it. That's the big action-y part. Now, when I originally did it, I assumed this is a menu piece. So I kind of kept it somewhat mellow. And after I submitted the whole thing, they're like, sounds great, but we want it to, like, in the second part, we want it to really get big and action-y, So I'm like, but this is a menu theme, right? I mean, normally you don't want to have this big action thing when you're, going over what outfit you want to wear or what your layout is. But they said, no, we want it. And turns out that they cut the second half out in the menu. They used the first half. But if you go online and Spotify or whatever, you can hear the full theme. And the full theme it's quite fun.
It's funny, all this behind the scenes stuff, and what actually transpires and what actually is the final product as opposed to what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, there's always a story, right?
Yeah, yeah. Do you still get a chance to network? Because obviously that is primarily the biggest thing in any type of creative industry, right? Networking is
Yes.
They say it's not what you know, it's who you know. Do you still manage to network a lot? I mean, particularly in the day and age of COVID and everything being more Zoom based, although normality is somewhat returning.
Yes.
Do you manage to do a bit of networking still, or are you just so busy that you don't get a chance?
Yes, I do. In one regard, I've done more. Instead of using the word networking, which kind of implies you're meeting new people that you've never met before, I've done a lot of relationship building and nurturing during COVID that more so than I've done in any other period in my life. And I think that's because this whole pandemic forced us to realize that, wait a minute, we're like a button click away from a face-to-face conversation with someone. Why do I have to wait for a conference to speak to you like you're sitting next to me? This is great. So I'm like, now it's the thing. You won't schedule a Zoom meeting. Have a Zoom meeting. You want to do a Zoom, or whatever, FaceTime, whatever it is. But so I've done more of that now, and I'm like, hey, man, we haven't seen each other in a while. Why don't we schedule a call? They're like, sure, let's do it. And then we schedule a call together. But that idea, when you say network, that has a connotation of this serendipitous meeting somebody new thing. And that has been, I think, more of a challenge. Let's say you're talking to this one person here and you're in a crowd and you're holding your drink, and then someone comes by and like, oh, hey, Bob, I want you to meet so-and-so. Yeah, that hasn't happened as much. I do miss that kind of thing as well. But what is nice and wonderful, especially in that I've gotten into adding this whole dimension of teaching and connecting with new people into my life, I've met so many wonderful new people and connections just through my educational outlets. Because all the time I'm getting, you're able to schedule a call with me, and so I might look at my week's calendar. I'm like, oh, wow, here's someone I haven't met. So they're actually reaching out to me. They might not be a business connection, so to speak, but I'm meeting, because I've been in the business so long, I think a lot of word of mouth, people switch jobs and go from this company to this company. So I do stay in touch with as many people as I can who I've developed relationships with over the years. And a lot of times I'll get introduced. Oh, I'm leaving here, but I'd like to introduce you to so-and-so who's taking over for me. So there is a bit of that serendipitous meeting new people element, just due to the nature of the momentum of having a network already and having it grow.
I do think COVID will have permanently changed things, though. There'll be some things that, even after normality somewhat returns, this will still be a common way of connecting with people.
And I think that's one of the few benefits, one of the few silver linings to come out of this pandemic.
I agree.
Is that this is going to be a lot more, happen a lot more often, and I think it's for the best, quite frankly.
So, when you worked on Prince of Persia, were you aware of Middle Eastern music? Were you quite familiar with it, or did you have to go away and do a lot of research?
No, I was very familiar with it. I mean, not like a musicologist familiar with it, but Prince of Persia was one of my dream bucket list games to do. There was a wonderful story before I got it. 5 years before I was hired to do Prince of Persia, I was walking through the streets of San Francisco through GDC, and I was so it was such a dream to do Prince of Persia, and it was so on my mind. And I remember hearing this sound bouncing off the buildings. It sounded like a metallic bowing sword, but plucked strings, and I was like, what is that? It was this hypnotizing kind of music. And so I'm walking around where is that coming from? And I finally found the person. His name was Michael Maisley, and he was playing something that he created called a cymbalom. And it was like a zither, but technically it was from ancient Persia. I did not know that originally. But he created this thing where he put little clips on his fingers that were like metal feathers, and he would be able to pluck and bow the strings at the same time, and it had this really mesmerizing kind of sound to it. And I went up to him and I bought his CDs, and I said, hi, I'm Tom Salta, and I just want to say your music is magical. There's this one game that if I ever get a chance to do it, I promise I'm going to reach out, I'm going to find you, and I want to hire you to play on it. And he's like, no, nice to meet you. Okay, sure, great, And sure enough, fast forward 5 years, I remember that I had to pitch on Prince of Persia, and I got selected. And the first thing I did, after jumping up and down, is I was like, okay, how am I going to find this guy? So I went out there, and I actually was able to find him and get an email address, and I said, I don't know if you remember me, but I told you that if I ever got hired for this project, I want to work with you. And he's like, I do remember you. And sure enough, I did. We actually did remote sessions. This was at the dawn of, again, the earlier time frame of high-speed internet. And that was the first project that I ever did where I had musicians in other locations that I recorded, that I didn't actually work with in person in the studio. So I had Michael in San Francisco. I hired him, brought him into a recording studio. We set up Skype. I had a singer in Italy. Azam Ali was in Los Angeles at the time, I believe. Judith Berard was in Italy. Bashiri Johnson was in Brooklyn. I had a wonderful wind instrumentalist in Sweden, Sandro. So it was just amazing. I was like, this is a dream come true. I'm having, it's like the world. This is like, right, I'm connected to everybody, And I still marvel at it. I mean, we're supposedly used to it by now, but it is a miraculous thing, I think, to be able to just, collaborate with someone on the other side of the planet.
Yeah, totally. And it's quite seamless as well, isn't it?
Yes, it can be. I mean, those interactions, some of them were real time, and some of them were, hear the tracks, record them on your own, and then just put them, send them to me. That kind of thing. And they would be sent via the internet, It was amazing. It just worked great. I'm like, this is incredible. I get these files here, drag this in here, So, but your original question was that I study it. No, I didn't well, yes and no. If you listen to my score to Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, the Forgotten Sands, The Sands of Time was my favorite score back in the early 2000s. I remember Stewart did that one. Loved the music on The Sands of Time. When I did it, I really wanted to do something that felt authentic. So we made a conscious decision to not put any Western orchestral instruments in it whatsoever. There's no violins, there's no French horns, there's no timpani, no orchestra. It's all ethnic instruments and unusual instruments, and vocals and stuff. And I want it to be more of a tapestry of magical goodness rather than a Hollywood type of Hollywoodized score. And few people realize that, and I don't know why Ubisoft did this, but they released 2 versions of the same game with the same box art, but 2 completely different games and 2 completely different scores. So the Forgotten Sands on the Xbox and PlayStation was a completely different game and completely different score than the one that I did, which was the Nintendo Wii and the PlayStation Portable. Completely different. It had nothing to do with each other. It wasn't even the same story. It wasn't even have the same look. It was everything was different about it. And I think they could have gotten a lot more sales from their fans if they actually identified them. Like, wait, you like this? It's like Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. Those are 2 different games. Don't call them the same game.
Mm. Did you know that at the time, though?
Yes. I did know it at the time.
Did you?
And they did not play me anything. It was a completely separate project, different studios, everything. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's weird.
It was weird.
Did you challenge them on it? Were you like, hey, what are you doing?
Who am I to challenge them on it? I mean, I certainly did. I'm like, why do you realize this is probably not going to help? because people. And look, if I buy Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, back in the day, I'm not going to buy it twice on a different platform, right? But if I would buy Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Assassin's Creed, 2. Those are different games, right? I would buy that on different platforms or the same platform. But they, because they're different names, they have different art, they have different everything. So I don't know why they did that. I think they were probably trying to link it to the movie, which also came out.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I don't know. I think they just wanted this like Prince of Persia thing to go around to just one name, and marketing. I don't get it. Anyway,
final question before I let you go: is there any game that you haven't worked on, or franchise that you haven't worked on that you would really like to work on that you haven't had the opportunity to?
Gosh.
You've done a lot. That's why.
Yeah. Definitely something that it would always have to be something that I haven't done before, because that's really why I do what I do. I love the variety. I love going on an adventure. It's like going on a vacation. It's like, okay, last year I went to Spain. I don't want to go to Spain. I want to go to, Morocco, or I want to go to, I want to go to different places, Italy, or, Africa, or, New Zealand, or Australia. I want to, they're all different. So, any answer I will give you is probably going to be something that I haven't done before. Let's see. I haven't done a Skyrim type of game before, where it's just this expansive, just mostly atmospheric, beautiful, lost in it music kind of thing. I would love something like that. I would love something like a Mass Effect, where it's just a space odyssey that just takes you to different worlds and different, you just want to get lost in that, and it's like a whole nother universe. Those are the kind of things that I think would attract me now. I would have also added to the list like a grand horror game, like a proper scare you out of your pants horror game. But I'm happy to say that I'm working on that right now, and I can't say what it is. So that one I'm checking off my bucket list, which is I love it. So yeah, those are the first things that come to mind. I'm sure after we get off, I'm going to kick myself and be like, oh, darn it, of course. But just know that I'm always open to new adventures, and that's really why I do what I do.
And that's a brilliant place to wrap up. Tom, you're a
Yes.
legend. Thanks so much for agreeing to do this. So where can everybody follow you on your social media and all your music and all that jazz?
Oh, easy. TomSalta.com. That's my website. My Masterclass is same location, and you click on Masterclass or just /Masterclass. And I'm on social media, so join my Facebook page. I have an Instagram, and I'm easy to find. So reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Cool. All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much again.
All right, Reese. Great to be here. Thanks so much.
No worries. That's the show, everyone. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe. Support the man, Tom, and all his future endeavors, and stay safe. See ya.